Good evening and welcome to the Board of Education regular meeting. It is January 8th, 2025. Are we in compliance with open meeting laws?
Yes, we are.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Harlan.
Here.
DeWitt.
Here.
Herzog.
Here.
Hess.
Here.
Smiltney.
Here.
Wright.
Here.
Wyman.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. And now I'd like to invite Graham Jeffers and Mrs. Willard from Shapiro to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, thank you, Graham, for your solo performance tonight, along with Mrs. Willard. Shake your hand, give a certificate, and say thank you very much for being part of our school board meeting. We really appreciate it. Thank you, and have a great rest of the year. And now we'd like to invite Mrs. Willard to tell us what's happening at Shapiro.
Okay. Hello, members of the board. I'd like to start off by introducing myself. My name is Courtney Willard, and I am the principal at Shapiro STEM Academy. As we begin to approach the close of the first semester of the school year, I am able to reflect on the support I have received as the new principal in Whirlwind from the staff, students, families, and community which supports and represents Shapiro. This year so far has been full of changes and transitions, and there are more to come. All of this brings forward a lot to celebrate and highlight this evening. As we return from an extended break, students and staff are regrounding in routines, procedures, and expectations to maintain a positive, safe, and engaging learning environment. This sets the tempo for the second half of the year. I am eager to see the impact our teachers have had on student growth. Currently, 70% of kindergartners can identify 40 or more upper and lowercase letters. 52% of first graders can read 8 or more snap words quickly from a list of 10. And 60% of second graders can break and read multi-syllabic words. And even after composing this, at the end of the day, I had staff coming up to me to share that as we are in our iReady testing window, they are seeing some huge growth happening. Students have grown up to upwards of 50 points, which is far surpassing their targeted growth for the year. In addition to all of this, there are multiple classrooms and grade levels field testing CKLA. At the end of the Knowledge Unit 4, the first graders celebrated their learning of ancient civilizations in Egypt and Mesopotamia by becoming pyramid and ziggurat architects using crackers and frosting. Our third graders are going to be turning their informational inventor articles into podcasts, which will be available for readers and listeners throughout the school and community. In math, our instructional coach intentionally used student-centered coaching paired with the co-plan to co-serve models. This was done alongside our crosscat and classroom teachers to plan accessible instruction for all fifth graders. The benefits were easily heard and celebrated across the school as students began to apply their learning across settings. Their confidence in understanding decimals and place values increased. By the end of Unit 3, students grew to be 79% basic or proficient. We know that there is a lot of change coming for Shapiro. Staff engagement has been at the forefront of all professional development alongside academics and SEL. One thing has been one-on-one rounding meetings, which have been taking place to gather further feedback related to our Gallup survey, specifically to identify areas of support, plan for improvement, and foster stronger relationships with each other. Moving forward, the staff continues to focus on the present, giving our students the best opportunity for success. I am proud of all the work that they continue to do to build relationships and to move students forward. I welcome you to visit our school anytime. It is a very unique building with all of its open concept. You can stand at any place and see and hear the brilliance happening. And I thank you for the invitation to come tonight and highlight Shapiro.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Really
you.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any questions for Courtney? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dr. Davis, are you ready for the land acknowledgement?
I am.
Thank you.
As we gather today, we would like to acknowledge that in Oshkosh, we are on the ancestral homelands of the Ho-Chunk Nation and Menominee Indian Tribe of Wisconsin, who lived along the western shores of Lake Winnebago, Wisconsin's largest freshwater lake entirely within its borders. We acknowledge these indigenous sovereign communities who have stewarded this land throughout generations and pay respect to their elders, past and present, and we welcome the duty and opportunity to share stewardship of these lands.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Is there anyone that would like to change any order of agenda items? Okay, then by acclamation, we will stay with the current agenda. Board President's report. As you can see, we have a lot of visitors this evening. Welcome, visitors. We're glad you're here. We're glad that you're part of decision-making in Oshkosh, and we appreciate all of your opinions. We have one retirement for this evening, and that's Stacy Johns. She's a cross-categorical teacher, Perry Tippler Middle School, and she's been with the district since 2001. Does anyone have anything to say about Mrs. Johns? Dr. Herzog.
Thank you. I just appreciate the work that Mrs. Jans has done over the years and would like to wish her a happy, healthy, and long retirement, and also remind her that we would love to have her back as a substitute teacher in the district because we can always use good substitutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent's report.
Yes, so tonight, so welcome to our students back for 2025. So we'll start with Sparty and what's going on at, I guess we'll, can we start with North? Faith, do you mind if you start first? All right.
Can I start first?
Yeah, let's do that. Okay, Faith.
So let's check in with Sparty, some January updates. I meant to put 2025 and 2024, I apologize. So starting with some musical Spartans, Oshkosh North Band participated in the Oshkosh Holiday Parade, and then the Oshkosh North Choir Madrigals have been performing around the school district in the community to spread some Christmas cheer that was going on in December. Spartan Choir has already started to prepare the musical Catch Me If You Can. It's starring Josh Hawley. The location is going to be at the Grand Oshkosh. And on February 13th to the 15th, it will be there at 7 p.m. And then on February 16th, it will be starting at 2 p.m. So come join and come support us if you can. So Spartans did have their blood drive in December. Oshkosh North students were able to participate in the blood drive that was organized and led by Mr. Griffith's Leadership 1 students. 83 Spartans have registered to donate their blood, and 64 of them were able to donate. The 64 units of blood will be used here in Oshkosh and other hospitals in the central Wisconsin, saving up to 192 lives. So we thank those students for helping to donate the blood.
Excellent.
So Christmas week, before winter break started, students at Oshkosh North got to have a little fun with the rising of Christmas spirit. Teachers were able to set up Excel sessions to help bring the holiday cheer, and Mrs. Klein's CAP speech class did an escape room and had their first to ever solve the case in 3 years. So that was really interesting to be a part of. So some Spartan sports, boys basketball 5-5 overall, girls basketball 3-8. Wrestling 0-1, and hockey 1-12. So some upcoming events. Currently, right now, Oshkosh North High School is having their annual 8th grade open house to showcase a bunch of clubs that students can participate in and get a small experience of what North is like. Parents advisory meeting will be held at North on January 2nd, 2025 at 5 p.m. And the ASL floor hockey will be held at North as well on February 14th. At 4 p.m. I would also like to add that we are doing a winter formal that's coming up at the end of January. I forgot to add that in there. So it will be having our Sassy Sasquatch week during that time. So thank you for checking in with Sparty.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and I'll throw it over to Jory, who has tell us what's up with the Wildcats, and also has a special recognition tonight. So, Jory, we'll start with what's going on with the Wildcats.
All right, so Wildcats for January of 2025. Some of the past events, we've had lots of sporting events, a lot of seasons wrapping up, many holiday concerts as well as parades, madrigals, DECA, 8th grade open house, wave kickoff, and WASC fall leadership. So, boys swim and dive is currently at 1 win, 2 losses now. Basketball for boys, 1 win, 4 losses. Girls basketball, 4-2. Wrestling, 1-1. Holiday concerts, we've had Bandorama, so that was a huge district-wide event for 6th through 12th. I'd say that it was very successful. It was definitely really cool to be a part of, and I'm sure people watching were entertained to see the pieces that we had commissioned for 6th through 12 all playing in the same piece. Sounds of the Season was choir and orchestra, so I heard that was a very cool concert as well. Madrigals just wrapped up their season, so they've been singing at different elementary schools as well as they sang at EAA and a few other places for the community as well. DECA districts just happened this past Saturday, so we've had a few medalists this year. So we have Sam got 1st, Lizzie got 2nd, Luis had 4th, and then we also had some medals from Alex, Carter, Clark, Jack, Geneva, and Maddie. So awesome for them. We just had our 8th grade open house this past Monday. We got to see a ton of future Wildcats. Definitely had a lot of clubs there for them to take part in and kind of learn about before they get to the high school. So I also heard that Global Academy, which is a big part of West for certain students, instead of taking all your classes individually, there are English, Spanish, and social studies combined. So that's what that program is. They had a really big turnout at that meeting, so that's really exciting. Wave kickoff also happened this past Saturday. Took place at North. That was for West and North students as well as most other people in the district. That was a big success. That was the start of the season, so now we have about 6 weeks until the first competition. We had the WAC Fall Leadership Tour, and that was hosted at UW Green Bay. We did not host this one, but it was really cool to be a part of. There was a lot of leadership going on.
And that's student council, correct?
Yes, that was with student council.
Yeah.
And then upcoming, we have our musical as well, which is Footloose, finals, Snowblast, and we have a clothing drive currently going on. So the musical is the week of January 23rd to January 26th. So if you are free, I highly recommend going to one. We always put on a good musical. Finals are next week, so the 15th through the 17th. And then one of my favorite events of the year is Snowblast. So that's similar to what North has, but we have activities the week of the 3rd through the 7th, and then we have our Snowblast dance on February 8th. So there's a lot of cool activities like free throw competitions, snow bowling. Those are some of my favorites. We do pyramid building.
And we're hoping for snow this year.
Yes, hopefully.
Last year was a little
sled.
warm. Yeah.
Yes. And then we currently have a clothing drive going on, which is being donated to refugees, and it is run through the Winnebago Area Literacy Council. It's running from the 2nd to the 10th, so it's almost done, but if you happen to have clothes to donate, awesome. If you could bring them into West, they're by both the main entrances.
That's cool.
All right.
All right, so we have a special recognition
Yes.
tonight. So Jory is here to present along with Becky Montour, who's the principal at West High School. We have a special certificate. So Jory, would you like to maybe just explain the recognition and the importance of it? And
So I'm really here to thank Mr. Doug Berger for always helping out. Every time I'm out there, he's helping clean up, which is awesome because our school gets pretty dirty sometimes, outside at least. Teenagers are a mess, but he's always out there helping, even if it's late at night or early in the morning, rain or snow, he's always out there and just helping keep our school a better place. So we really thank him for that.
So Doug, if you could come forward, please.
Present you with a certificate. Thank you very much for everything that you've done for the school district and especially West and all the students there. Appreciate it very, very much.
Appreciate it.
Very much.
I'm humbled and honored.
Thank you. I want to Joy and yes.
And I just want to reiterate, every single day, rain or shine or snow, he is on the West grounds picking up trash just out of the goodness of his heart. And we really love him. Yeah, and you want to recognize your grandson?
I also wanted to just say, Mitchell, would you stand up just a minute? This is my grandson, Mitchell Miller. He's got special needs and he helps as much as he can from us.
Congratulations again, and thank you very, very much.
Always makes you feel good when you can do that. Superintendent's good news report.
Okay, a lot of great things going on throughout the district, so I just want to be able to highlight a few of those. Our Menominee Elementary School is growing as a school family. The sense of community was highlighted during their first all-school assembly before winter break and has been further strengthened by welcoming Oliver as the newest member of the school's pupil services team. Oliver, a therapy dog, is available to support students and staff. So welcome Oliver. Emmeline Cook students recently enjoyed a heartwarming afternoon creating holiday crafts with residents from Edenbrook of Oshkosh. The intergenerational activity brought both the students and the residents to share in the joy of the season while fostering meaningful connections between the two communities. It was a memorable and festive experience for all involved. In a heartwarming display of community service, Carl Traeger Elementary K kids demonstrated their commitment to helping others by creating blankets for the tiny house village residents. This thoughtful initiative came at a crucial time during the cold season, making a difference for our community. So congratulations to our students in that great work. Carl Traeger Middle School students showcased their academic excellence through their National History Day project presentations. The research and presentation skills demonstrated these young scholars reflected their deep engagement with historical topics and their growing abilities to be emerging historians. Before winter break, our Val Phillips students spread holiday cheer through their first community engagement event. Students in the school's MELT program crafted and delivered over 100 goodie bags and ornaments to neighborhood residents. Under Mrs. Rapp's leadership, these young volunteers demonstrated how after-school program builds meaningful connections between the school and the surrounding communities. So great work on that. Pleased to announce that Anthony Miller, our Director of Community Engagement and Equity, has been named one of Wisconsin's 40 most influential black leaders by Madison 365. This recognition is part of our annual initiative honoring influential leaders across the state. Since joining our district last year, Anthony has worked tirelessly to foster an inclusive culture, create equitable opportunities, and engage our community. His commitment to improving education and empowering students and families is inspiring, and we congratulate him on this well-deserved honor. So if we can give Anthony a round of applause. Well deserved. First graders at Oakwood Elementary School recently brought their creative life to gym class, embracing the snowy weather with fun and imaginative activities. It was a full day full of teamwork and winter-themed fitness. Thanks to the Reed Rocket Boosters, 4Imprint, and UW Oshkosh Police Department, each Reed Elementary student received a red winter hat. These hats were not only for keeping our students warm this winter, but they remind our kids that our school community cares and is always there for them. Thank you for everybody who contributed to that. In our classroom, learning extends beyond textbooks to include emotional growth and celebrating progress. Menominee Elementary School students in Mary Brunzel's class recently earned a special game break for their dedication, reminding us that schools are not just a place for academic learning, but communities where students build relationships and lifelong skills. As part of our CKLA field test curriculum, second graders at Lakeside Elementary wrapped up their Greek myth units with an exciting Greek celebration. After diving into the myths, gods, and culture of ancient Greece, the students competed in their own Olympic Games with events including balloon volleyball and chariot races. At the end of the day, they earned gold medals and enjoyed a Greek feast, making this CKLA-based learning activity truly legendary. Pun intended. We are excited to announce that our district has been awarded a $35,000 in funding from the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction. This funding is part of our opioid prevention grant cycle and will support vital programs and services focusing on preventing opioid abuse and promoting healthier school communities. This award not only reflects the pressing need for such initiatives in our community and our schools, but also demonstrates an ongoing commitment to improving student well-being and academic success. Our first ever Martin Luther King Jr. Days celebration is just around the corner, happening Monday, January 20th at Val Phillips Middle School. The free event will feature a variety of activities designed to honor Dr. King's legacy and bring our community together, including connecting as a community over breakfast, celebrating our essay contest winners, and enjoying student musical performances. The keynote address will feature an energizing and interactive reflection on Dr. King's legacy, delivered by our Assistant Superintendent of Instruction, Dr. Sam Coleman. You can learn more and register on our website. Registration ends ends next week on Wednesday, January 25th or 15th. So we hope to see everybody there. And finally, just a list of locations that I've been over the last couple weeks. And again, a lot of great things going on in OASD as we kick off a brand new calendar year. And that concludes the Superintendent's Good News Report for tonight.
Thank you very much. We now will hear from Mrs. Conrad Peters and Mrs. Perrin, open enrollment information for us.
Great. Thank you. This time every year, we are asking the board to approve our criteria that we use for establishing what our spaces are available for non-resident open enrollment students. So in your staff report, you have the background information on the open enrollment application process, which the window will be opening at the beginning of February. So we want to establish this criteria for how much space is available and where we have that space available. So we first start with our regular education open enrollment space. You will see in the staff report that what you're seeing there is the ratios that we use at each of the grade levels to determine if there is extra space for non-resident students in those classrooms. So for the Oshkosh Area School District, our caps are for 4K through 3, our cap is 24 students within a classroom. And then for grades 4 through 5, it is 27 students. On that report, you will notice that the class sizes that are listed there in that formula are 2 seats for new resident students are held so that we're not putting non-resident students in places that we need for our children, our resident students within there. So that sets that criteria or the establishment for room there. You will also notice that our AGR schools look to have a class size of 1 to 18 in kindergarten through 3, and then go to the 1 to 27 for grades 4 through 5, such as the rest of the district. So by establishing that formula or those ratios, we know where we have open seats as we go into staffing and enrollment time for the Oshkosh Area School District. Once we do that with regular education, we start to go and look at our special education spaces. And we staff special education based on case management or based on ratios. And so in your report, we take a look at each of the types of services that we offer for students that receive special education services, and look at what our ratio capacity is and what our ceiling can be, what our projection is, and if we are able to be transparent and say that we absolutely have space in those service areas to accept open enrollment students. When you look at the chart, you will notice that we do have space to accept open enrollment students that need cross-categorical services at the middle school level and at the high school level. The rest of our space for special education is currently, we are calling it closed, based on our residents, our staffing and our resident students that we currently have in the district, ensuring that we can serve them at the highest level possible. Some of the questions that have come forward is saying that by establishing this, are we sending a message to families or neighboring school districts that we are not open to open enrollment, should I say, or that we are not taking open enrollment. That's not true. We absolutely want any family that's interested, that's non-resident, that is interested in coming to the Oshkosh Area School District to please apply for us, and we will do our best possible by setting these parameters to see where we have space and can invite you in for placement in the Oshkosh Area School District. Another piece that was asked from a question standpoint is, if you'll recall, in I would say the first meeting in October, I went through the certified third Friday pupil count. And at that time, we talked about the number of students that are coming in and the number of students that are going out when it comes to open enrollment. And I gotta find my numbers here so I get this correct. Okay, so for the 24-25 school year, we had 182 students open enroll in, and we had 483 students open enroll out. So currently, we have net open enrollment out. But one point that we have been talking about, and the board has been talking about, we've been working on, is making sure that we are capturing and we are retaining our resident students that are here in the Oshkosh Area School District. And so that is where we want to be making sure that we have space, we have the services, and we have the staff to be able to provide the highest level of instruction and service to our students and our families.
Questions?
I have a question, and I think I heard you correctly. You said that the open enrollment out was 483?
Total for the entire district, yes.
Okay, so I know I have asked before, are we doing any type of an exit survey finding
Yes.
out? And are you able to share some of the reasons as to why?
So I would request that I do a report, or actually report out
Fair.
on the exit surveys, and we actually have started that. So
Okay.
any family that actually exits the district or withdraws from us, a survey goes to them. Obviously, it's whether they choose to fill it out or not.
Right.
And actually, families have been filling it out.
Good.
And we are starting to, actually, Mrs. Katie Neiman, had just sent me some of the latest information and themes that we would like to share with the board. In addition to that, we also went back in time and over, I think it's the past 2 school years, if a family has withdrawn in the past 2 school years, we also sent them the same exit survey. Whether they choose to fill it out or not, we hope that they do, because we want that information. And so I would request if I could report that out to you at a future date.
Yes, please.
I think we can do that at the next meeting, because we'll need approval for the open enrollment seats
Absolutely.
at the next meeting, so why don't we just incorporate it?
I think
as
that would
part
be
of
great.
Great.
Totally can do that.
Thank you.
And I guess I would just like to comment on the fact that we are at a net negative for students leaving this district, and I know one of the reasons, I'll be on my literacy soapbox, one of those reasons, and I know multiple families who have left our district in the past because of our literacy offerings and that kids were not learning to read in this district. I would hope that they would consider giving us another chance, that we have finally made some very much needed changes, and that we are, I would say, some of the leaders in our area on science of reading-based instruction, which cannot be said for many of the other districts in our area. So I hope that people would have the open mind to maybe think about coming back.
That's great. Yes.
I had a question about special programs or services. So if somebody, I'm looking at the chart that you put in our board packet, if a parent wants to enroll a student who is deaf, we don't have resources for that student because it's closed. Is that what that closed means?
We only have one teacher, and that's based on audiologists, and particularly right now, hearing interpreters are really hard to get, Stephanie.
I'm sure.
So if a student is fully deaf and hard of hearing or has a hearing loss, interpreters are really hard to find right now. There's a shortage.
Yeah, I understand that 100%. I
We
also
don't want to take anyone that we can't service the way
right,
their IEP
and that
is.
makes 100% sense. I also had a question about which schools are closed under the.
Actually, none of the schools are closed.
Oh, okay.
So what that top portion is saying is that based on those ratios, and once we have all the students rolled and we start looking at enrollment for next year and placing students in classrooms, we would be able to use that ratio to help determine which seats are open and we can take open enrollment in.
Okay. Thank you. I was just curious.
Other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any committee reports? Dr. Herzog?
If there are others, they can go first. I don't need to be first.
No, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Well, I have two in that case. First of all, the Education Committee met on Wednesday, December 11th. Dr. Coleman provided the update on this year's school report card. The district again earned a 3-star rating, which is the same as last year. However, the score did increase slightly from last year by about 1.7 points. The DPI, or Department of Public Instruction, changed the metrics this year, so the scores can't be directly compared to those of previous years. Test changes were in closer alignment to the state standards as compared to previous years. New testing incorporated new questions or more questions, sometimes asking for the same answer multiple times. ACT testing, however, did not change, but the state of Wisconsin changed what is considered to be proficient. While we are still understanding how to make sense of the changes and the cut scores, the district is already making changes in how students prepare for the ACT by increasing exposure to ACT-style questions in key content areas. Celebrations include North High School and West High School receiving scores as 2 of the top 3 high schools in the Fox Valley on the 4 criteria of achievement, growth, achievement growth, achievement outcomes, growth outcomes, and state comparisons target. He also provided information about what the district is doing for those schools that are meeting expectations, exceeding expectations, and significantly exceeding expectations. The committee expressed its concern about how the testing and the scoring from the DPI is lagging. The district has been making positive changes, and these scores are a look in the rearview mirror, not reflecting the work that is currently in progress. The committee discussed scoring comparisons and stressed that the focus is moving forward, needing to focus on math and literacy and not just focusing on one or the other. The 4K program is critical in helping students to be both ready and successful. The committee requested that administration return to an upcoming meeting to discuss the following topics. First, what strategies are in place for students who are performing in the bottom 25th percent or quartile, the plan for engaging community members in our literacy efforts, and finally, what is being done to identify and close achievement or performance gaps. The next meeting will be held, or was held, on January 2nd, and so the upcoming meeting for February will be held on February 5th at 7:30 in the morning. Or 8:30 in the morning, excuse me. Facilities and Finance Committee met on Thursday, December 12th. We heard from Eric Cass from PMA, who presented on bond history and current practices. Committee members had the opportunity to ask questions and to discuss potential changes to the bond payment processes. The OASD is collaborating with the City of Oshkosh and the Town of Algoma on a BRIC grant application. This grant could fund up to 80% of building updates, and the timing for filing the application would be soon in order to have the timeline consistent with Phase 2 of the Long-Range Facilities Plan. Mrs. Kiffmeyer proposed holding homecoming games and games with scheduling conflicts at the high school stadiums rather than at Culf Stadium. This aims to increase community involvement and school pride. 2 community feedback sessions are scheduled soon, one on January 27th and the other one on February 3rd for community input. There was a discussion on naming, there was an interest in naming the Oshkosh North Field House, and that discussion has been delayed until spring 2025. There was a discussion on a memorial garden or the possibility of a memorial garden for Webster and other OASD sites. A committee member had raised the question of a memorial for the Webster Stanley site since that name is currently not in use. The committee discussed community polling on the desire for memorials as well as preferred methods should they be museums, displays, student projects, etc. The district aims to develop a consistent practice for memorials across the district. Mr. Nehans presented a preliminary budget for 25-26 and noted that it is currently a work in progress. Key factors include per pupil increases, special education aid, and potential funding deficits. A more definitive budget will be available closer to the beginning of the 2025-26 school year. The Facilities and Finance Committee meets tomorrow morning in this room at 7:30 a.m. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything for policy and governance, legislative? No.
We didn't meet yesterday.
All right. Okay, I think that is all the reports. That'd be great. Next, we have non-agenda related public forum. And Mrs. Smilton is gathering the list. Okay. So non-agenda related public forum, clearly state your name, the city you reside in, the topic you wish to address, and if you're acting for a spokesperson for a particular group, please indicate the group that you represent. State your matters of concern. Time allotted is 3 minutes. And remember, use of specific names of district personnel may lead to legal liability. In such instances, please pursue the district's formal complaint process by contacting the superintendent's office. We have one person this evening, Jean Erdman. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Jean Erdman, and I live in Oshkosh, and I would like to talk about the equity plan. About a year ago, maybe a little more, I gave, the community was asked to give input, and I wrote several drafts of various comments and feedback. And so now a year has passed, and I'm looking at 4 items from the equity plan, and I'm asking that someone contact me from the district with feedback. They are all due, or they were due a while ago, and I'd like to identify them. The first is to develop a clear and concise discipline policy. I'd like to know, is that posted on the website? Could it be posted on the website? A theme that I'm hearing from coming to several meetings is that the community would like more information. And while a lot of good work is done with communicating with parents, it's hard sometimes as a community member who's interested and who has a right to be interested to learn things. That's number 17 in the equity plan. I chose 4 of the items from the equity plan. I think there are 35. The next one is the professional development opportunities for staff to consider the potential impact of their decisions on targeted groups. And this may be speaking particularly to children of color. The first one was due to the district on December 24. That was number 17. Number 13 was due to the district on September 24. The third one is the district philosophy on discipline and accountability. And that was due to the district July 24. And the last one is the results of student belonging surveys. Now, I do not want to be seen as a nitpicker or a haranguer, because I greatly appreciate how difficult it is to be an educational administrator. I was one at the university for several years, and the volume of stuff that you deal with, I think the public has no clue. It's just, there is a lot of work. There's a reason those salaries are there. It's a lot of hours and it's a lot of work. So it's important to find ways to give feedback to the community that doesn't take inordinate amounts of your time. So I'm not asking for detailed reports, okay? I'm asking for posting on the website so that it doesn't just come to me, but other people have easy access to it, of feedback and progress on the equity plan. And then perhaps stating the numbers, and then this is where we are. This is in place, this is happening between the principals and teachers. This is what we're still working on, these are our challenges. You know, a few sentences, not necessarily all kinds of numerical data, something that is not going to be a hardship for people, something that's sustainable, okay? I'm thinking the website would be a good place because anybody could go look, but some system of feedback.
Your
That's
time
it.
is up, but
Okay.
Jean, may I ask you a question?
Yes.
You gave us number 17, number 13, what are the other two numbers?
Number 16 and number 34. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Gene, we'll have Mr. Miller will be in touch with you to update the progress.
Thank you very much.
And now we have the agenda-related public forum. We have 3 speakers this evening. First one is Mr. Carnes.
Hello, everyone. Christopher Carnes, Oshkosh. Do I need address or just city? Just city.
Just city.
Thank you. So I'm here tonight. First off, sincere thank you to Stephanie. Your service to our district, to our community, deciding not to run again. 9 years. 9 years. As a parent in this district, you have made our district better, and from that, I thank you. Molly, earlier you mentioned literacy and how important and the changes that have been made. And I think it's important as we, tonight's obviously, the reason so many people are probably here is the facility conversation. And it's fair to say we can do 2 things at once. We can do the literacy work that's being done, that has been done, that will be done for a long time. There's a lot of work. That will be and is our focus as a district going forward. I do think the community supports our schools. They support our school district. Right now, I just think there's a lot of misinformation that's being shared around our district and around our community that is unfortunate. And I challenge all of you to have an open, honest conversation tonight where we challenge some of that, and we clear the air on some of that, and we do better going forward to try to make sure that everyone has all the information. See a lot of assumptions, a lot of posts, a lot of comments that aren't completely factually accurate, and we need to make sure that we are doing better. I'm sure all of you know there's 3 main responsibilities of a board member: setting policies, assessing the superintendent, and creating a budget. There's a comment or a line within one of the policies that states, "Remember always that their first and greatest concern must be for the educational welfare of the students attending public schools." That is a policy that states what the board members' expectations are when it comes to communication, ethics, behavior. So as you are going around tonight having that conversation, that needs to be the primary focus, especially when you can do it without raising taxes, which is, I believe, the case. Remember always that their first and greatest concern must be for the educational welfare of the students attending public schools. Good luck tonight in your conversation, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Jean Erdman.
Jean Erdman, I live in Oshkosh. I want to talk about testing and assessment. Test scores are one of the things we use, but they are certainly not the only thing that's used. And I want to point out that intelligence of children and teenagers is broader and deeper than what shows up in a test. So they're valid, but they're not everything. And I want to put in a plug for the value of teacher observation. And I have actually a current example because I have a 5-year-old great niece and a little neighborhood kid who comes over and plays with her. This child has never spoken to me. She will not look at me in the eye. She will not say hi, but she likes to come over and play. And her big sister comes too, so that probably makes it more fun. I didn't think this child knew what was going on. And I'm pretty approachable and sit on the carpet and stuff, so not too intimidating. They were playing hide and seek the other day, and this little girl went to the corner, faced the curtain, and counted to 20 out loud. I was astounded. That's something that a teacher would see. But if she's in a row, sitting down at a desk for a testing thing, and she's asked to count or identify letters, it may not show up. So I just want to explain that teachers know a lot, and they do a lot. And I would encourage the public, pay attention to test scores, but be aware it's only one piece of information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our final speaker this evening is Mallory Schneider-Birschbach.
Good evening. My name is Mallory Schneider-Birschbach, and I live in the city of Oshkosh. My message isn't just for this board, but mainly for the citizens in the Oshkosh Area School District. And I'd like to remind the public that this referendum, if it's approved by the board and by the voters, is more than just nice-looking buildings, and it's more than just about tax bills. Currently, South Park Middle School is not ADA compliant. Disabled students deserve equitable access to public education in every capacity. Consider what a no vote says to our disabled community. We need to serve all students. Also, please consider where you get your information from regarding this referendum and information on general school funding. Some people do not have our students' best interests at heart and are spreading misinformation and disinformation in our community. If you're upset about the district having to go to referendums, then contact your state elected officials. Our students deserve better, and our state elected officials need to break the continued inequitable funding among our students across the state. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes our public forum for this evening. Next, we have a workshop, summer school. Dr. Coleman.
All right, good evening to the board. I am joined by Andrea Fisher, who serves as one of our summer school administrators, and Alyssa Bergstresser, who also serves as our extended school year administrator. Jan Wagner also serves as a summer school administrator for our elementary schools through 8th grade. She's not with us today, but I'll also present this information on her behalf. And jump in whenever. Okay. So I'll start off with just some highlights from our summer school from this past summer, and then from here we'll build onto what we can look forward to for our upcoming summer school session. So our enrollment was up from the previous year in 2023. There was a total of 5,548 course enrollments. That represents 2,651 students who participated in the summer school programming in 2024. 211 enrollments in math and literacy classes were at the Oshkosh Boys and Girls Club. And then our E-Academy courses offered for our students in high school, grades 9 through 12, through 2 sections of health for 9th grade. And then our Camp Invention for students in K through 5 was maxed out. That is a popular program. I know that there have been questions about ways to make that summer programming available to students at a couple of different sites. That is something that we are exploring as we understand how popular that program is. This slide shows a 5-year historical enrollment summary. And so if you look at just where our enrollment trends have been, we continue to see increased participation in our summer school programming. Specifically, if we look at our math for students in K through 5, and then also our language immersion programs for students in K through 5. And then also for our getting ready for 1st grade, we saw a decline in that programming. And so this is something that we intend to continue to provide more targeted communication so that we have more participation in that programming. We saw at our literacy K through 5 programming as well, an increase from 291 students in the previous year to 375.
Is the language immersion, is that English as a ESL?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. This is a continuation from the previous slide, this time with the focus on our middle school students. So again, for literacy for students in grades 6 through 8, we see an increase. We did see a decrease for student participation in math. We certainly don't believe that there's a decrease in need for students to participate in our math summer programming. So this is, again, something that will provide more targeted outreach and communication and recruitment for students to participate in our math summer programming. And we see participation in programming, our offerings such as band and orchestra also increasing. Same with choir. And then all other courses, we see a slight decrease as well. All right, there is supplemental summer programming that we provide. This would be for our students who have refugee background or who participate in targeted English speaker of additional languages services. So our SPARK programming, which is a mentoring and character and identity development enrichment program that is offered for students in elementary school. We saw increased enrollment and participation in that, as well as new voices and faces, also aim to provide services to our students who have refugee background or participate in our ESOL services. And then for our rec department, engagement in that was a significant increase as we saw 1,404 students participating in that compared to 1,159 in the previous year.
Sam, why is there an asterisk by those numbers? I'm sure you already said and I missed it.
Hey, Jan, sorry.
That's, students may be enrolled in more than one class.
Okay.
So a student could be counted more than once.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yeah. And that's the same with Spark.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Andrew, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, for high school, so I am new to the high school principal position for summer school. Our numbers of students increased by quite a bit there. High school credit recovery courses that we offered were 243. The enrichment courses we went up in, it's like we did a creative writing course a lot for our ESOL students as well. Credits attempted was 302, and then credits earned was 287. We did a much better, good job this year of trying to hold kids that you needed to come in person, and I think that helped with credit completion. And that's just our program totals all around. So number of courses, course enrollments, and then equivalent student FTE. So how many teachers we have.
Right, and so again, what we see here is an increase in the number of course enrollments or participation. So this is something that we want to see, and we'll continue to provide targeted recruitment through communication and engagement with our students and families so that we continue to grow that number. This just provides a breakdown of what that enrollment looks like and what those trends have been for students, and then you see that separated out by elementary school, middle school, and high school. This is a summary of student participation with a comparison for students who receive special education services and then students who do not receive special education services. This is consistent, I would say, with what our representation of our student body looks like. So 14% of students who are served who have disabilities is consistent with our special education population. This slide summarizes what those enrollment trends and participation looks like with comparison for students who are economically disadvantaged, and that's determinations made by students who are eligible to receive free and reduced lunch and then compared to those who do not. This number is also consistent with what our student enrollment looks like during the school year. And for our students who participate in ESOL services, I would like to see so our district percentage overall is, this is not making,
So we had
more participation during the summer, sorry. So we see a slight overrepresentation for our students who participate in our summer school programming. And then by gender, and this is proportional. And then racial and ethnic identity. Right. So the financial impact of our summer school programming from the previous years you see listed here. When the board receives the report and resolution to approve on the 29th, you will see numbers reflected for what our projections are for the upcoming summer school year.
At the elementary level, we have plans to add a new site, and that will be Menominee Elementary will be added. So that, in addition to continuing with the Oshkosh Boys and Girls Club, which started last year, we will have 5 sites that serve K through 5. 1 site for middle school, and that will still be Bell Phillips. We also get to add a camp invention site this year. In addition to having Lakeside in June, we're going to have a camp at Menominee Elementary in August. I know that was something the board had asked for last year, so we were able to make it happen this year. We're excited about that. At the middle school level, we're going to be adding more targeted interventions for literacy and math, inviting students into that class instead of, it's still optional, but talking to parents and to students about the importance of continuing to address their skills throughout the summer. And Spark and New Voices, New Faces will continue for our ESOL students and students new to the country.
Also, just going off of the literacy and math intervention, we're going to try to move the current 8th graders going into 9th grade into the high school setting, hoping that'll get some more buy-in for that grade too, because then they can feel more in their high school and getting ready for their next step. And then we're hoping to have no overlap with EAA AirVenture dates for the high school courses.
Yeah, extended school year is specific for students with IEPs. It is determined by regression. So every student with an IEP doesn't necessarily qualify for ESY. It's really about recouping their skills over long breaks and students that struggle to recoup those skills. It is a small percentage of students. Services are based on the student's IEP needs and goals. It is not a 12-month service for all students with disabilities. It's not required to be provided all day, every day. It's not an automatic program, summer school or enrichment program, and it's not a service to be provided to maximize each student's potential. It's just meant to help not have that regression be so great. And we'll get to the staffing piece. There is that part, though, to help with student achievement and build student skills by having co-taught between special education and regular education teachers in literacy and math classes to help with student achievement that don't necessarily qualify for the extended school year.
These are the dates for pre-K through 8 for summer school. We will have 19 days this year. Last year we had 18. The start date looks a little bit later this year. That's just because of our ending date for the regular school year. So it will run 5 weeks and no school on July 3rd.
For high school, so we have to meet minutes to earn credits. And so our session 1 will stick with 15 days to earn the half a credit for initial credit. Session 2, so that we don't go into that Monday of EAA, we're asking to do 14 days, but extend those 14 days by 20 minutes to make sure that we're meeting the minutes for that. And then driver's ed is another slide we'll get into, but that one, we'll have to have 1 virtual day because the state allows 2 hours per day. And so we'll do 1 virtual. Our locations are listed there. So the elementary ones, middle school is using Bell Phillips. High school, we're mainly at North. We'll have music camps, and then West is going to have the driver's ed. We're going to move it to West. They're going to have driver's ed, and then it also is going to continue to have the CATS program. Credit recovery, Race and Dash staff is for English, math, science, and social studies. So that's a 9-day program. That's typically students that are within 10%, 5 to 10% of passing, and they may have a couple assignments to make up. Instead of repeating the whole entire class, they have an opportunity to do the projects needed to get to a passing grade. We're going to continue with Learning Lab model for credit recovery, and then the teachers for Learning Lab in the area, so they're content teachers, an English, math, science, and social studies teacher, and that runs from June 9th to July 18th. It's a 4-hour session. Students are required to come for 2 of the 4 hours through the whole time, so not just 15 days, or until their class ends. Those are the proposed elective courses that we're having. Nothing has changed from last year on there. And then those are the E-Academy courses. So we did have a lot of success with our E-Academy online courses. And those are the same ones from last year that we're going to propose, whether we have enough students to hold them or not.
And there are no changes to the proposed courses for K through 8, just the addition of the more literacy and math intervention.
The athletic camps, CATS is held at West High School. So they have a middle school level and a high school level. The dates and times are up there. It's mirroring last year, same thing. And then North has Spartan Strength and Conditioning. Again, they have a middle school level and a high school level, same dates and times. Adaptive Sports League. So that is June 16th to July 17th, Monday through Thursday, no Fridays. They run from 12:30 to 2:30, so it's typically after the main hours. They're at the North High School Field House, grades 7 through 12. I invite you all to come and watch. It's a wonderful program.
Here's the information for Camp Invention. You can see the June date at Lakeside and the August date in Menominee. In the past couple years, we ran it for 4 days because teachers had in-service day on the Monday, and then they ran it Tuesday through Friday. The way the calendar worked this year, we're able to go back to the intended 5 days. So those are the hours for Monday through Friday at those locations. And we pretty much have it, all the staff that do it in June are also going to do it in August. So we got lucky there with finding staff to fill those positions. We have 5 different music camps that we offer to like kind of that middle school going into high school grade age or age range. Last year, Jumpstart to Orchestra was new, and that will continue again this year. And the music camps asked to move from Bell back to North High School. They just felt that facility worked better for them.
Same as last year, we're going to still have the high school marching band. They run until their July 4th parade performance, and then we have the summer jazz at West High School, and then they have their performance on August 30th. Driver's ed this year, we have 1 session, 8 to 10 from the first 15 days. The second session, again, we'll have one shortened day. So due to July 4th, no in-person session, they'll complete 2 hours virtually. The classroom fee is $125. It's open to all high school students who are at least 14 years, 9 months at the start of the summer session. And then behind the wheel, various dates and times will be offered. They schedule those, the students schedule them with the program. They come to the west and they will do the behind the wheel. The fee is $300 paid prior to getting temps and enrolling in behind the wheel. Students have to be 15 years old and hold their temporary license. Here's the proposed high school staffing. It's the same as last year. We didn't have any changes to that.
At the K-8 level, we added a site, which is Menominee, so we will need an additional lead teacher and an additional building secretary. But besides that, everything else, we'll need a few more teachers at Menominee to fill those positions. But I anticipate that some of the teachers that we have at Oaklawn was kind of busting at the seams last year. We might be able to shift some of those to Menominee because I think some of those students would transfer over to Menominee because it's closer to their home. And here's the proposed summer school pay. No changes to this over the last few years. Targeted dates and timelines. We already sent the new course enrichment proposal to teachers this week. New course proposals are due next week. In February, we will communicate to all teaching staff which job openings are available and they can apply then. The middle of February, we will send information home to families on how to register. And then can you go to the next slide? Registration online opens March 5th and runs through April 2nd. Principals can recommend students to receive services after the registration, especially in literacy and math. I think reaching some of those groups like students receiving special education services, that's one way that we can, teachers and case managers can encourage families to sign up. And staff will be notified of their summer school contracts in late April or early May. Communications to families will be sent out in early May. We always hold a summer school staff meeting just to get everyone on board. And then at the K-8 level, we have an open house so that students can come visit the building and find their classrooms and meet their teacher and all of that.
So at this time, if there are questions or discussion, we can certainly have that. Or if not, we encourage you, invite you to reach out to us throughout this week and next week. Then we can address those questions in the report and proposal that the board will receive for a vote on the 29th.
Looks like a lot of wonderful opportunities for a lot of our students.
Yes.
Any questions? Yes, Dr. Herzog.
Thank you.
Mrs. Carl.
Questions and comment. First of all, I want to commend you for what I see as a creative array of opportunities, learning opportunities for our students. I was especially drawn to the E-Academy courses, the virtual health classes, Second Sight for Camp Invention, and the Adaptive Sports League. I think those are all great additions. I do have a couple of things that I wondered about. One was, you mentioned in one of the slides a driver ed course request to grant a quarter credit. Is that classroom or behind the wheel? That's question number one. And secondly, when will that come to the board?
It won't, so please disregard that.
Okay. Good to know. No, I'm not confused. Thanks.
Nope.
And then on slide 36, on your timeline, you had an item on there about, let's see, new course proposals. So you had a bunch of course proposals on slides 21 to 23 and beyond, so I'm not sure what the January 13th deadline for new course proposals is.
For example, we have added the site of Menominee. So we're going to start,
Okay.
with literacy and math. We start with the core, and then we're looking for teachers to provide like an enrichment such as art. We have a lot of physical education teachers who may do like a sports class, a music class. So we're asking teachers and staff if they have a proposal to add an enrichment course.
Okay.
In that way.
Thank you. Appreciate that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Mrs. Carlin.
I just had one comment and a question. So my comment was, I think it's great that you guys are working around EAA. I know in the past we haven't always done that, and people don't realize the impact it has on our community, from people working jobs, restaurants, congestion, etc., or even people going on vacation and renting their houses. So I'm really happy to see that summer school will not be during EAA. And then I also had a comment that the driver's ed fee of $300 is a bargain, because if you go to one of the other companies in town, I think it's like $550. Don't quote me on that, not sure. But that is a great price. So I hope that people take advantage of that. And then my question is, do we have any funding for students that can't afford that fee?
So I just actually got an email from Jackie Kiffmeyer that kids can apply and the fees would be cut in half if they qualify for it.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
For both instruction and behind the wheel. So both would be cut in half.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much for your report.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. Board has been furnished with background material on each item or has been discussed at previous meetings, be acted upon with one vote. If a board member wants to discuss any item, it will be pulled out of the consent agenda and voted on separately. We have one item with Part A and Part B. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Hess, right?
Yep.
Call the roll, please.
Aye.
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 We have two individually considered resolutions this evening. First one is the initial resolution authorizing general obligation bonds in the amount not to exceed $197,800,000. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Right? Carlin?
Correct.
And we will have discussion, but I believe Dr. Davis would like to give us a little bit more information before we do that.
Yeah, so I'll welcome up members of our planning team. So we have Clint Selly and Nate Constantine from Bray Architects, so Julie Conrad and Drew Nehans from our internal team. I want to start tonight by going back in time, starting the presentation and being able to outline for the community the communications related to the Whitman Regional Airport zoning that started actually back in October of 2022 and run us through a timeline that all the way through today. That's resulted in some of the changes to the proposed referendum, which I'll outline in the slides. But before that, I want to be clear with what our communications have been as we move forward, as we look for where mistakes were made and make sure that we have ways to be able to correct them and the accountability for them moving forward. So in October of 2022, the school district was mailed a notice of a meeting that was at City Hall to discuss the proposed update for the Whitman Regional Airport Zone, presented by the City of Oshkosh and Winnebago County as a joint meeting, and that meeting happened at City Hall. There was a notice that was sent to that meeting, to property owners in the related zones, the airport zones that were affected. According to our process internally, as we're getting zoning updates, The executive assistant to the superintendent collects our mail because this notice was sent to the OASD PO box. So that's where the letter for the notice of this meeting was sent. So my executive assistant collects that mail from the PO box and forwards it to the appropriate administrators. When it's zoning related, the correspondence is directed to the business office, and the executive assistant to the executive director of business services takes our zoning notices. The zoning notices are typically then reviewed by our executive director of business services, Drew Nehans, and a copy sent to our director of facilities, and the notices then are filed for us. So that's what our process is. Related to this letter back in October of '22, we do not have a copy of that zoning letter, and that is on us. From a process standpoint, we missed that and have to take responsibility for that, and have some actions towards the end of this to make sure that our processes are improved as we're moving forward. So as far as the internal accountability is concerned, that's been addressed with this team, and we'll commit to making sure that we do better as we're moving forward. So that was in October of 2022. 3 months later, in January of 2023, Winnebago County, through their Planning and Zoning Commission, had a public meeting related to the same airport zoning code. So that there was postings that were made to announce that to the community. So Class 3 notices were posted in the newspaper. So individual property owners were not sent notices of that meeting for the county, as confirmed by Carrie Rowe, who's the county zoning administrator. Mark Lyons, the former City of Oshkosh Planning Services Manager, was listed as the agent for that posting. So he would have been the city contact related to this. So we did not see that notice, and again, no OASD representative was present at that county meeting, and again, that's on us, and we'll have some corrections that we'll make in our processes as we're moving forward. So that was back in January of 2023 when the code in question was put in. 21 months later, so in September of 2024, so this past year, as we were going to do feedback sessions for the initial concepts for the referendum, the community member, David McKinney, who is also here with us tonight, raised concerns about the zoning restrictions for the expansion and rebuild of South Park. So taking that feedback, I contacted Nate Constantine at Bray Architects the next morning to check on the zoning restrictions for South Park. And again, our process for any questions on zoning related to the city would go to Mark Lyons. So Nate then contacted Mark Lyons later in that week, who is again the City and Planning Services Manager, to check on any zoning restrictions for South Park. And Mark Lyons had said that there was no zoning restrictions that were identified at that time during that call, even though he was listed as the agent for the county airport zoning meeting that was posted back in 2023. So we did not have notice then at that point that there was restrictions. And so that's our, where the accountability lies as far as our partners are concerned. And again, I have some action steps to be able to address that as we're moving forward. So if you move from then September of '24 to December 9th, Mr. McKinney had contacted Dr. Hess related to concerns about building on South Park. So that was the week of December 9th. The afternoon of Friday, December 13th, Dr. Hess talked to me about reviewing the airport zoning. On the morning of Monday, December 16th, I met with John Damel, the county executive, Ethan Hollenberger, county executive assistant, Marianne Mueller, the Winnebago County Corporation Counsel, Lucas Locke, the deputy airport director, Carrie Rowe, the county zoning administrator, Mark Roloff, our city administrator, and Kelly Nyforth, our county development director, to discuss the zoning concerns and options of how to move forward with the South Park project. So options for the South Park project in that discussion included getting an amendment to the zoning code through the county board because the airport is oversaw by the county board, or moving the middle school project to a different site that would be outside of the affected zones. So tonight I will go through the details of some 4 options that we explored as a planning team that next morning, and I'll go through those and talk about the revised plan that we're proposing tonight that the board would vote on. Before we go into that, though, and we go to the slides, I just want to go through some of the details and, again, talk about from an accountability and improvement standpoint. One of our core values as a district is continuous improvement, and we live that and take that very seriously. So I want to be able to outline what we've implemented to avoid missing any zoning changes in the future. So 4 things that I'll outline here. So 1, notices for zoning changes, both the letters and the newspaper postings, will be received by the assistant to the executive director of business services and given to the operations team, which meets weekly. The operations team is made up of the assistant superintendent of operations, executive director of business services, and director of facilities for review and action as appropriate. Improved procedures will also include digital copies being scanned of these meeting notices being sent to my office and emailed to the parties that were named as part of the operations team. So we have an electronic copy of those also. So that's number 1. Number 2, the director of facilities in active outreach will contact the county and city zoning administrators twice a year to get an update on any zoning changes that would affect our schools. So that'll be an active outreach by our director of facilities to make sure that if there is something that's missed, which shouldn't be, but if there is, it would be a safety check on that. Questions regarding zoning will continue to be asked of both the county and the city administrators, so not just the city zoning, but the county zoning also, by either our director of facilities, who would be the point person for us, or the design professional consultant, in this case Bray, as we work towards future projects to make sure that both city and county zoning is taken into account. And then I will be meeting shortly with the county executive and the city administrator, both the current standing interim city administrator and the incoming city administrator, to discuss coordination of all current and future zoning codes. So what happened in missing this is not acceptable. We hold ourselves to a higher standard, and we will do better as we're moving forward. So I wanted to be able to outline that for the community on how we got from October of 2022 to when we came to our meeting on December 18th and needed to then move ourselves forward because we are a students first organization. We'll hold ourselves responsible and move forward on behalf of kids and do what's right for kids. So I want to walk through the proposals that we've worked through over the last 3 weeks, going from December 18th at our last meeting to talk about what we feel is the best proposal to move forward, both on behalf of kids because we're students first, and also in response to taxpayers because you'll see the savings that we're proposing as part of this process, both now and the cost of waiting and what that looks like. So I want to just draw your attention again to the slides to be able to work through some of our details as we move forward. So again, the last time we met was December 18th, and we talked about the current South Park site being considered unsafe for an expansion, and that's related to the 2023 county airport zoning being updated and expanded, prohibiting the expansion of schools to large gatherings of people. So it's schools, hospitals, big stadiums, that type of thing, and that's really what the zoning is trying to avoid is an expansion of or a large group of people being able to meet in one spot. So that's really the gist of what the zoning is trying to do. In our specific areas related to South Park, and I'll show you a map in just a second, looking at arrivals and departures from the airstrips and how that comes into play from a safety standpoint. So we took a look, as was recommended at the last meeting, we took a look at the Shapiro site, identifying that as outside of the airport zone, and we believe that that is a safer site for us to be able to move from the South Park site, move the middle school to Shapiro. It is a larger site. It's about 2 acres larger than the South Park site, and so that does fit. I'll show you a map of what that preliminarily would look like. It's less than a mile away from the South Park site, so in that close proximity to serve our south and east side, southeast side of Oshkosh, also inside Highway 44 or South Park Ave, and so we don't have that. From a building standpoint, the location is pretty clear. We've also done our due diligence related to existing site conditions at Shapiro, so that's the work that we've been doing over the last 3 weeks, reviewing zoning, known documented wetlands identification, soil conditions, existing storm and sanitary conditions and so forth. So, and that's the typical due diligence that we would do at this point in our process. We don't do soil borings or land surveys or anything like that until we would get approval, and it would be on the second phase part, if you will, of the project. So this is similar to the process that we use for Menominee and Bell Phillips as we move forward. So that's from December 18th. As we go there. So just to provide for the community taking a look at the actual map, that's part of chapter 44 or 24, which is the zoning related to the airport. And you can see the two main strips of darker green in the middle are the east-west runway and the north-south runway at Whitman Field. And you can see that the South Park is right in the middle of that approach and departure district that would be considered Air 2 and would put that site, again, at risk based on this zoning code. So there's really no getting around the fact that South Park is right in the middle of there. And that's what prompts us from a safety standpoint for our students and for our staff and community members related to South Park who would gather at South Park to make sure that we have an alternative option for that site. So you'll also see on that map that Shapiro Elementary School is outside of that Air 2 zone and outside of any of the other zones and creates a much safer place as we're moving forward. So on December, so that was from our last board meeting. The next morning, December 19th, our planning team, internal planning team, again, members who are here tonight, explored 4 options based on our feedback of potentially how to move forward. So option number 1, to stay at South Park and stay on that site, wait a year and get the zoning amendment. As I mentioned before, some of the recommendation or some of the feedback from the county and the city representatives where we could possibly go through the county board to be able to get an amendment from the zoning and stay on that site. So we discussed that. Part of the concerns for that option were looking at, again, you're still in that safety risk area, so we're not addressing the safety concerns. Increased costs, if we're waiting a year for that building specifically, estimated at about $88 million for construction. If you wait a year, basically and not put it on the ballot this April, and you wait till April of 2026, we're looking at least we estimate about a 5% increase in our costs, which is about $4 million would be the cost, what we estimate to be the cost to wait. And so that's something that we take seriously from a taxpayer standpoint to make sure we can be as efficient as possible in this process. And then also looking at the uncertainty of building approval, we would need to go through the county board. There's no guarantees that as we go through that process that would be approved in time for another election or another opportunity for us to go through this. So that's what we looked at for option number 1. Option 2, again, staying at that South Park site, keeping the timing the same, and begin the zoning amendment process. So again, that, from a safety standpoint, still doesn't address the concern of safety. If we were to get the question approved through the referendum and save that money and get it going, we still would have the uncertainty of building approval, which didn't make any sense to us to be able to go through, look for approval from the community, but then have building approval, not have that be an uncertainty. So again, that was something we explored, but did not look at as a good option. Option number 3, again, move to a different site and wait a year. So that's what we were looking at for the Shapiro site, but waiting a year for us. The concern is around increased costs. Again, about $4 million, a little bit over $4 million would be 5% of the current price tag for that middle school. And just being concerned about the increasing costs is why we took a look at option 4. And that's what we've been working on over the last 3 weeks. So moving to a different site and keeping the timing the same. Certainly there's concerns about adjustments to the project logistics and locations, and so that's what we've been working on for the last 3 weeks. But of those options, we feel that those were, that was the best option of those 4 as we move forward. So again, that was our work back on December 19th as we move forward. I'll take a look at the results of our work over the last 3 weeks to give you an idea of what the proposal is tonight related to the shift in logistics. So essentially it's taking a look at a new middle school, which is similar to what our proposal was back on December 18th. It's just at a different site. So we're still going school from one school site to another school site. and it's actually a bigger site that we'll be landing on. And we ran and I'll show you in a little bit just the map, site plan of what that would look like. And we do have a good plan for what that would look like at the Shapiro site. So same scale as far as the school, but a different site. What we were going to put on the Shapiro campus was a 4K center. And so we worked with our 4K principal to take a look at the capacity opportunities at Tipler Middle School, which was also talked about probably 5 or 6 years ago, I think, in part of the original planning for our 4K center, looking at Tipler. And so Tipler Middle School, or the 4K center actually fits well in Tipler Middle School along with the rec department. And I'll show you some design aspects of that we would make sure that we have secured entrances and separation of spaces. But the pre-K center actually fits pretty well, which is why logistically we felt like that move was something that was appropriate for this. One of the things that doesn't happen from our proposal from December 18th was the alternative school sites will stay at their current locations. So we had them going to Tipler Middle School, so they will stay in their current locations. And then we'll close and seek to sell South Park at South Park Middle School, and then the 5 adjoining lots to help support housing needs in Oshkosh. So that would be the purpose of how we would move forward with that South Park site. And we got approval from the county and the city to be able to resell those lots as residential lots. And for those people that would buy those lots to be able to put up housing. So again, the concern related to that space is around large gatherings, and certainly want to make sure that we are setting people up for success as we're providing that housing. And so we've got that in writing now to be able to sell as we move forward. So there's nothing else that changes as far as the scope of the phase 2 that we had planned. So again, the tenets of consolidation and everything that we've talked about for the last 6 months in the community, all of that stays the same. The need for us to be able to get to a better solution for our South Park students stays the same. All of those needs still exist, in addition to the safety concerns that are brought up related to the airport zoning. And so that actually gives us more urgency to be able to find a solution sooner than later for our South Park students as we would move forward. So that's the updated scope. Wanted to just give you an overview of what we'd be looking at the Perry Tipler site. And so on the site plan, you can see there'll be some expanded parking and logistics just around receiving around the back of the building. You can see on the left-hand side for the site plan, on the light area, white area that you have there would be the portion of the building, first and second floor, that would be the 4K center, with the entry coming off of that front half-circle drive would be the secured entry there. And that would be renovated. The money that we were allocating for Shapiro Elementary School then is put into Tipler Middle School to make that accessible for 3- and 4-year-old bodies. So it would not look like or feel like a middle school, would truly feel like a 4K center. And then the rec department would be on the other side of that building. That includes the gym area, cafeteria, that type of thing. There's some classrooms that are in that section also, and they would have their own separate secured entrance, so there wouldn't be mixing of any of our 4K students down to do Zumba class at 10 o'clock during the day, because they would be mixing between the two. So that's important for us to be able to have that type of separation and security. So on the right-hand side, you can see, and again, I know the letters are small, but you can see just the heavy renovation and light renovation of what that would be is significant for Tipler Middle School, as you would look at that as one of our changes as we move forward. And then the second change, again, is to take a look at that Shapiro site, the new middle school at Shapiro. And again, that is about 2 acres bigger than our South Park site as we move forward. And so we like that preliminary design. And again, this is similar work that was done over at South Park. So everything functionally that we were able to do in the new building over at South Park is allowed for us to be able to do here. And I would say, there's also been some comments just preliminarily as we're talking to staff to be able to, move ourselves from South Park Ave, which is a very busy thoroughway, to move to streets that will be a little bit easier to navigate from a parking standpoint, and student foot traffic would also is being held up as something that may be a better situation than we had before at South Park. So those are the two main updates that we have. The rest of the plan, again, stays the same and stays consistent with what we had before. And we believe that this is the best solution for us moving forward, and that there's some urgency around the South Park situation to be able to propose it tonight, to get it on the ballot for April, to be able to get the ball rolling there. Now, we're also, certainly from a tax standpoint, want to make sure that we're conscious, and I want to point out just the consistencies that we had between the previous plan that we had talked about at the last meeting and this current plan. And so you can see just some minor differences between the shuffling that we needed to do logistically. And so you can see a little bit less actually from the proposals. So you'll see in the resolution tonight, we're at $197.8 million, so about $800,000 less than where we were on December 18th. So a slight change, but essentially the same because we would be taking that scope from where we had at Shapiro and moving that over to Tipler, and the new middle school was going to be the new middle school. As we're going. So again, just our talking points are consistent from the community standpoint. As we look at our new structure, we're still proposing a $0 increase to the school tax levy for paying off paying off the previous debts. So that would all remain the same. So that messaging has not changed and would not change like in our process as we're moving forward. Certainly the questions come up. So what if phase 2 is not completed? And so these are some of the talking points and that we had used with the community over the last 6 months. Just revise those a little bit just to outline again the unsafe flight zone that is also accompanying parts of the 120-year-old building that are at South Park, and our urgency to be able to address our need at South Park. Shapiro's students, if it's not passed, will still be consolidated into the remaining West Side elementary schools. And then the additional operational savings that we would typically capture in consolidation would not be able to be captured. So I would say also, and just again, and I think this is a significant point related to the cost of construction, and this to me is the why not wait for it? This is what we'll have to decide, because it's about if you're just talking about the middle school, it's about a $4 million increase. If you're looking at the entire package that we're proposing, it's about $10 million from putting it on the ballot in April to putting it in April of 25 compared to April of 26. And so that's the reality of the cost of doing business as we would be discussing this, and needs to be part of what we would look at as part of our overall proposal. So again, our takeaways that we want to be able to have are consistent with what we've talked about from a community standpoint all along, improving student safety and student services, reducing our operational costs annually through our consolidation as we have reducing enrollment, and then committing to the $0 increase for taxpayers. So that hasn't changed at all. Just a reminder of where we are in our progression. That's something that we've been actively doing over the last over a year now. Moving forward, and we're at that time that the board has until January 21st if you're interested in putting a question on the ballot for April 1st of 2025. And so if it's not tonight and the board is interested in putting a question forward, we would need to have a special meeting before the end of the day on January 21st. If not, April 1st of 25, then because there's not a fall election in odd years, then we would be looking at April of 2026, and if not then November of 2026. So those would be the upcoming dates. And so tonight in front of you is the proposed language related to the referendum question and as it would show up on the ballot. So that's been provided as part of your materials. We were able to take some of your feedback from our previous meeting to be able to have this language be as legible as possible, adding bullet points and getting some clarification on some of that. And so this is what our team is proposing tonight based on our work really over the last year and what we feel is best for kids and taxpayers as we're moving forward, knowing that over the last 3 weeks we've had a shift in locations, but again the tenets and the themes of what we're trying to get done have not changed, and which is why we're proposing to be able to move forward with it as of tonight. So with that, I'll just ask if our team has anything extra to add, and certainly open it up for board discussion. Anything additional from the team? Okay.
Questions? Comments? Dr. Hess?
So I've got 4 questions. 2 of them related to the timeline, and then 2 of them related to kind of the new plan that we got here. First, I'm a little concerned that part of the question of what happened in September, we talk about going to Mr. Lyons in the city of Oshkosh, and I feel like we're kind of pointing the finger at him. And so what I'm struggling with is, like you said, he was the department planning director for the city of Oshkosh. He's the guy who worked with Mead and Hunt to develop the new zoning. And so I think what I'm interested in is, I believe, Mr. Constantine, you're the one who talked to him. My question is, what was asked of him? Because if the question was asked, is there a zoning issue? That's one thing. Versus if the question was asked, is there an airport zoning issue? That's kind of a different thing. So could you share, if you recall? I appreciate it was a while ago.
Yeah, it was a while ago. There were 3 or 4 items that we had discovered between our civil engineer, Bray, the planning team, that I had specifically asked him about, that we came out of the community feedback meeting that evening that we wanted to touch on. If many of you don't know, most of the south or west portions of the city must have been served by wells at one point in time. So our civil engineer identified that there were wells on the property. Are they still active? What are you going to do with them? There's methods and means to deal with those pieces. That was one question that we asked of Mr. Lyons, of just trying to understand the background of what's popping up on some of those background searches. The other piece was related to the parcels around there. Obviously, the school district owns several parcels around the South Park site. And similar to the past projects of Menominee and Bell Phillips, there has to be a multi-step process through the city and the county to combine those parcels into one parcel through a certified survey map, and the zoning associated to that, because where the parcels used to be houses was zoned one way and the school is zoned another. So to combine all of those all had to be under common zoning and combine that in that fashion. So we talked about the process of do we have any issues if the school district had the opportunity to pursue additional parcels, or what any concerns about doing the certified survey map around that. At that point in time, no concerns were pointed out from a zoning perspective on combining the parcels. And I will be honest with you, I very specifically didn't ask about the airport zoning because that was not something that we are aware of. So to your question, did I ask that specific question? No, I did not. And so when we talked about zoning and the rezoning of parcels, that would have been the time, right? If we're all honest. I apologize. I think there was 1 or 2 other items that, I think were brought up. Trying to remember when we had the community member in there and talking about the different parts and processes of the South Park site. But those 2 were the one that really kind of jumped out to me that Mark and I talked about over the phone.
Thank you. I got another question here, but I want to be fair about this. I didn't warn you ahead of time, so if you guys happen to have an answer to it, so be it. But otherwise, this would be something that I think the community asked me. I don't have an answer to it. If you want to answer, so be it. If not, at some point in the future, I'd like to know an answer to it. And that is, on November 13th, we had a board meeting, and Ms. Conrad Peters, you presented to us a fairly extensive report on all the feedback that we got from the listening sessions. And it was, detailed of all of the comments that people were making. And I'll note that 80% of the comments from the community were from a single individual. And then the other remaining were where you would say, hey, 4 people said this, 10 people said that. You kind of summarized it that way. And so what I'm struggling with is if Mr. McKinney asked us in September about the zoning issues, and that it was sufficient enough to get us to ask Bray to go talk to the city, why wasn't this comment at all reported in that report on November 13th? Because that would have been like the one that we would have looked at and said, there's a problem here, or asked a question about it. So if we don't have an answer to it, if that's something we got to think about or go back, I get it, but.
Yeah, we'll take a look at those notes, and,
okay.
Yeah, we can get back to you on that.
Thank you.
Obviously the.
He has 2 more questions.
Oh, you got 2 left?
I got 2 questions related to the plan.
I know you had 2.
Could we go back to the middle school Shapiro site? I don't know who's controlling. Oh, you got it, okay, good. Maybe this is a comment, maybe this is a question, but here's my concern about it. I appreciate you've only had 3 weeks to do this, but my one concern is we had to take Merrill School down because we needed to put a track there. That site had 5.8 acres. I think we've got roughly 10.7 acres here. I don't see this as necessarily a good site to work with. It might be a challenging site in terms of things that are laid out, but I don't see, like, I don't know that I could even get a football field in there. So I'm struggling with, and maybe, is there a way to, I don't know if you have to go up or something to get more green space on this one?
And
or
again,
is there a strategy?
Yeah, I mean, there was not a football field or a track or anything planned for South Park, right? So what we're taking a look at is what we had planned for South Park to be able to put on this site is what we're, like, that's what this plan is. So different from what we were looking at Bell.
And if I may touch on a couple of the comments you made, yes, all the good Oshkosh sites have unique components to them. That is what we have here. And so with this specific site, we're trying to stay compact and efficient with the layout. However, as you can imagine, there are many different zoning ordinances that we need to abide by, and parking is one of them. That is why we have quite a decent sized parking lot south side of Val Phillips. And we actually had to go and get city approval because I believe we're short by about 15 stalls per the city ordinances. That was approved through the city. I mean, everything's okay at Val Phillips, but we're trying to make sure that we're trying to accomplish all the baselines that the city has here as well. So would the district potentially like additional green space? I'm sure that would be lovely if that was the case. But Drew, I don't know if it would be appropriate, but I think the middle school athletics and thought about track and field was kind of thought through district-wide when going through the track considerations at the Merrill site. Is that fair?
Yeah, it was. I mean, at that time, as we talked to the athletic directors prior to Vel being completed and us moving forward with that track, the decision knowing that South Park was not going to have capacity for a full track would be, in the future, would be to expand and put a track on the Traeger facility for the West Side Middle School track to share with South Park in the future is the current thought process. But again, that would be at a future time.
Thank you. And my final question is, I think in the bullet points we talked about Shapiro site is safer. And then we had something that talked about the due diligence was completed, soil borings and land survey that we're waiting to after the referendum, and that was consistent with what we did in 2020. Do we have any sense of any issues? Have we done any sort of phase 1, phase 2 environmental studies on this site? What do we know about what we're working with here?
Yes, so there's known documentation published through the DNR of potential, well, first off, mapped wetlands and also any wetland indicators would be a next layer, and then contaminated sites is a third layer that is also reviewed as well. So on the wetland side of things, there are no mapped wetlands on this site. If you were to pull up the public website, DNR, and look at wetland indicators, the entire city of Oshkosh has wetland indicators over it. You just live in a lower spot adjacent to the river. But nothing that would prevent a process to identify whether or not there is or is not wetlands there, and would allow us to build on this site. So there's nothing in that avenue that has jumped off the page to us. And then on the contaminated site piece, there is obviously the quarry, and then some adjacent sites, but nothing immediate. And I think even the park, I apologize, which park did Mr. Fox? Quarry Park has been remediated. So that some of the kind of old contaminated sites in the area have been addressed. And so
I guess specific to your point, a phase 1 and a phase 2 have not been done today. Correct.
That's fair.
So you mentioned the quarry park, and that really is my concern. Is, you know, I'm doing a project over near the river, and it's the Boatworks project, and we're next to Family Video, the old Family Video, and they've got a bunch of that was sitting on a landfill at one point, and they're constantly testing methane gas. And so, yeah, I look at this site, and just south of Quarry Park are, I think, 3 lots that the city bought a number of years ago, where they are actively continuing to try to mitigate methane, because there were 2 quarries there that eventually the city went in and filled in a while back. And I think my concern is that, you know, knowing about this stuff, you know, I think the CDC has warned that landfill contamination from methane can travel up to 150 feet underground, and that this site is at its furthest point all within, I'm sorry, it was 150, no, 1,500 feet. That the entirety of this site is within 1,500 feet of 3 filled-in landfills that were once quarries, that there is methane remediation actively going on there. And in fact, the latest ones, the closest ones, the city has a sign up right now saying no trespassing, that the public is not welcome on this site. So I mean, that's part of my struggle with us pushing this in 3 weeks. I kind of go, have we really dealt with everything? Now, I appreciate there are remediation strategies that one can take to deal with methane, but at the same time, it's kind of like a similar question to South Park. Did we want to take the risk with aviation stuff? We chose no there, and I kind of go, it's a debatable question to me. Do we want to take a risk on having methane seepage coming over here and attempting to deal with that?
But we don't know that we have that, so let's
We don't
be
know that
clear
we have it, no,
that's not
but-
a concern right now.
But we're
Not a
asking for
concern.
$197 million referendum to be passed.
No,
Can I
that's,
ask, are you
whoa,
advocating
whoa,
for-
whoa, whoa. We are asking tonight to put a question on the ballot. We are not voting for the community tonight. And those are 2 very different things.
True.
And many things can happen after we decide to put it on the ballot or not put it on the ballot. The election, the referendum is in April, and we need to keep that in mind. Mr. Wright, you had a question, and Mrs. Carlin.
You can go first, if you want, Stephanie.
Okay, I'll go first. So when we had some folks come to our listening session tonight who were a little upset about the change of direction. And I want to go on record as saying I agree with the community. I had my initial reaction to this plan and the zoning issues and everything was disbelief first. I thought, we've had a school on that site for 120 years. There has never been an aviation disaster. It's ridiculous that we cannot build a school there. But then I started thinking, we built our schools for 100+ years. What is Whitman Airport going to look like in 100 years? Is it going to grow? Probably. I hope it does. And we did have commercial flights going in and out of there in 2000. I used to take a United flight from Oshkosh to Chicago. So there is a possibility that that airport could grow. And if we build a new school there, it could be a very unsafe place for our students. To me, the zoning issue in itself, we have zoning ordinances for a reason. And I don't want my students in that area if there's even a small risk. The next phase I went through in digesting all of this was frustration. I have in my notes, how did this happen, in all caps? As Dr. Davis just said, we did not find out about the ordinance until a few weeks ago. It was adopted in 2023, and clearly this was a massive disconnect between the city, the county, and the school district. But at the end of the day, there is no value in pointing fingers. When my kids were little and they would fight, I would say, I don't care who started it, just figure it out. Dr. Davis has told us that there are plans in place. Yes, we missed the ball on that, big time. I then kind of moved into an acceptance phase. Does this new plan make sense? And then I began my evaluation. Yes, the Shapiro site is actually bigger than South Park by 2 acres. It is 0.8 miles from South Park. In objectively speaking, more safe area because there's not as much traffic in that area. Tipler is actually a newer school and better situated for pre-K. It's more centralized for parents. Another bonus to this plan is we get to get rid of an extra building. In the current plan, we were only going to redo South Park, but now we will be getting rid of South Park and repurposing Shapiro. That's going to be more consolidation, which equals more savings. And there is also some cost savings in not having to demo South Park, potentially. We don't know what's going to happen with South Park, but it will be expensive to demo that building if we had to. So at that point, I kind of moved into a full circle of this plan makes sense. I actually think that this is a better plan. We will have fewer schools. We don't have to have a Save South Park School Committee. We can keep South Park as a building, and if somebody wants to repurpose it for apartments, they would be responsible for changing the zoning and going through all that, not us. In my opinion, does the zoning change, is this referendum still needed? Yes. Does the zoning change the need for new schools? Yes. This is a safety issue to me. I feel like we have dodged a bullet. The wrench in this process is actually a blessing in disguise. I do not want our kids in an airport zone. I hope the airport grows and becomes more profitable. That would be great for our community. What is best for students? I ask that question with every decision I make. What is best for students? Get them in a better area, get them off an unsafe facility. have a comment. Do we throw the baby out with the bathwater? No. We have to keep moving forward. In the end, we have to pivot and adapt. What is best for students? South Park is not an ideal space for students. We already know that. Nothing has changed in this plan. We have extra space, we have opportunity. We are literally taking this plan and putting it into another facility. We are not wasting resources because we have already done the work that can be transferred to other sites. And what does waiting do? Waiting does nothing. Waiting will cost us $4 million and keep students at South Park for another year, which none of us want. Pivoting makes sense to me. As Christopher Karn said tonight, our job is the educational welfare of students. What is best for students? I think that's all I have, but I don't think it's a good use of anyone's time to point fingers at whose fault it was or accountability. This is just something that fell through the cracks, and it's a big one, and it will not happen again. We've been working on this facilities plan for 6 years now, and we've been making great progress. None of this has changed the need, as Dr. Davis said, for what we have to do next, our next phase, consolidation, closing schools. So I am 100% supportive of this option. I know we don't have a lot of the data on the site, but I'm confident that you will do your due diligence and planning and soil testing and all that kind of stuff. So again, full circle, I actually would like to compliment Dr. Davis and his team for coming up with this plan in such a short amount of time, because not only do I think this is the better plan, I'm thinking, why weren't we doing it this way in the first place? So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wright.
All right, I guess I can go.
You had your hand up.
I did. So I'll go.
Okay, good.
So the reason why there are community sessions is was for Dr. Davis and the board to listen and to get information and feedback from community members. Nothing is ever finalized as far as a referendum is concerned until the board votes on that. Obviously, the miszoning change was a big deal, right? And there has to be correctable things so that doesn't happen again. Personally, when I found out about it, I was upset, a little bit frustrated, and I wasn't ready for a referendum to go forward with that question in place. And my mind started thinking about, as a community long-term, okay, what do? We have these facility needs. No one's debating that, right? There's a lot of debate on how to address those needs. And then this new proposal came forward. So I asked myself, what are the pros and cons to this new proposal? What are the pros to us moving forward? What are the differences, right? So the difference between being at South Park and Shapiro is 0.8 miles, right? There's kids right there right now. We have a school there right now, but we've been planning for a while for them to move to a different location, and they will move, right? They will move to Tipler if this plan passes. Actually, when the numbers came in, we don't have to purchase any additional architecture type stuff because our old plan converts to that new site. The new site is bigger than the old site. The new site allows, or there's less traffic there. It allows the 4K center to move to a more centralized location rather than being at Shapiro, right? I think it's a good thing to have 4K at Tipler instead of Shapiro, actually. So when I started to look at it, and even some people called me, and they're like, most people are like, we like this a lot better. And the question in everyone's mind is, can it pass with the short notice, right? The question isn't the plan. The question is, can the plan be communicated effectively in the amount of time that we have for the community to accept and support the plan, right? So I wrote down some pros and cons. I don't normally do this. Normally I just speak like I was, right? But pros, cost savings because of consolidation. If we don't do it, there's not those cost savings. In addition to the fact that we would have increased construction costs likely if we did it later on. No levy increase. I will admit that is due to us paying off debt early at a low interest rate, right? It meets South Park safety needs. It's not ADA compliant at South Park. There's kids upstairs on the 3rd floor, in 100-degree heat oftenly in September and October with windows shut. At some point we're going to have to, if the community says no to this, we're going to have to do something with South Park. Okay? But we were talking a lot just about South Park and Shapiro here tonight, right? Because that's where the flight issue occurred. But no one spent any time talking about all the other stuff, okay? If we don't pass the referendum, those schools still don't have air conditioning, right? We don't have a consolidation of elementary schools, which leads to cost savings. Oakwood still stays really old. Franklin still stays really old, right? We don't have any of that stuff occurring either. We don't get a new 4K learning center for early learning that's going to allow our younger kids to have an opportunity to learn in a center with more combined resources, right? And we don't have more of a set curriculum district-wide. I think that's a huge thing. So in my mind, those were a lot of the pros. Some of the cons or reasons why not to do it would be because of the communication timeline and the fact that $198 million still is a lot of money, and it always will be a lot of money, right? But we likely have all these maintenance and building issues because for the past probably 50 to 70 years, we've always found a reason not to do it. And next time we would want to go to referendum, there's going to be a whole bunch of reasons not to do it too. Whether they're real reasons or manufactured reasons by community members with messaging, different messaging methods or needs. So I like the plan better. I like that we're not tearing down South Park and that can all be developed. I like that. One question though, where did the estimated costs come from to make this plan $800,000 less than the last plan? I want an answer to that.
Yeah, I can touch on that. So we revisited the budget specifically to the pre-K center and the new middle school. Obviously, the demolition costs of removing the Shapiro building is vastly different comparative to if we were to have to remove the South Park facility. So that's why you're seeing a cost savings there. And then Shapiro to Tipler, there's different infrastructure needs between the two different facilities. So we were able to reuse some existing corridor walls at the Tipler Center, where maybe some of that obviously doesn't exist. At the Shapiro site, And from a big picture, whether it's systems, such as fire alarm or HVAC electrical upgrades that were going to be required at the Shapiro site, are different in comparison to the Tippler site. So there is a savings there as well.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We've got Dr. Herzog, Mrs. DeWitt,
I'll talk whenever.
Mrs. Miltney. Go ahead.
Okay, so there's a lot of chatter in the community about, well, we should just be focusing on educating kids and we don't need to have new buildings to do that. And I want to make it clear that kids can thrive in any setting, and my number one priority is to ensure that every student in OASD has the access to obtaining a high-quality education. At a minimum, they must be able to read and write and have the opportunity to be successful participants in our community. And I've said it before, though, I believe students also deserve high-quality modern facilities in which to learn. But those new facilities will not matter unless we do the hard work of creating an overall atmosphere where kids are actually learning. And for the first time since I moved to Oshkosh 15 years ago, I can say that we are doing that. I am extremely proud of the hard work taking place in this district to create a positive learning environment for students to learn, thrive, and achieve. CKLA is a top-of-the-line literacy curriculum for K-5 and is based in the science of reading. This curriculum will be district-wide next year, but we're already seeing the dividends in student engagement in the classroom where it's being field tested. And for the first time that I'm aware of, the district has an explicit plan and strategies to support academic growth and increase student engagement. Led by Dr. Coleman, the district is ingraining 4 components of a proven process to provide all students with rigorous and engaging learning experiences. They focus on effective use of high-quality instructional materials, effective professional development and coaching, useful assessment of students' learning, meaningful educator feedback and evaluation. And then additionally, there are 4 strategies to address the causes and effects of underperformance in our students, particularly those underrepresented in our bottom quartile. Those students in particular will benefit as we provide intensive, systematic instruction for literacy development, leverage proactive classroom management to decrease problem behaviors, teach and reinforce social and emotional and behavioral skills, and promote high expectations and cultural competence among all educators and leaders. I am confident that OASD can transform the learning environment in each of our schools to one filled with rigor and engagement and academic achievement. That said, and again, neither big nor small, old nor new schools are inherently bad. It's about the learning environment that they facilitate. Sometimes inappropriate facilities can limit student engagement. Extreme heat, where classes have to be relocated and kids go home sick from exhaustion or headaches, windows that don't open, having to wander a desolate hallway to get to your classroom or to the elevator, those things don't exactly make kids want to learn or even attend school. And there is a valid purpose for consolidation. It can ensure access to educators and staff when a child needs that support. Now, we need to be clear that this means that the staff member's entire caseload is at one school. That doesn't necessarily mean that there are more staff or lower ratios to meet the children's needs. But consolidation also allows the district to off-board schools that are not safe or appropriate to meet the needs of students of today and in the future, and that are expensive to maintain. We can save taxpayers millions of dollars operationally every year and eliminate deferred maintenance cost. The goal is to right-size the district and the facilities it maintains to minimize expenses to the taxpayer. That is our fiduciary duty as board members. And now, I was about to ignore the elephant in the room of the absolute fiasco that was the airport-related zoning changes, but as a lawyer, I just can't bring myself to skip it. I am just dumbfounded that from the city to the county to the school district, this passed over multiple years and no one recognized the fact that South Park is in the middle of a no-build / danger zone / air flight limitation zone. I'm not sure that anyone realized the plain language of the language that was proposed and what the changes meant. And I think it was passed without people asking questions. There was definitely a breakdown of communication amongst government entities, and that's incredibly disappointing. I also think our district systems failed, and I appreciate that Dr. Davis has outlined things that the district will be doing differently in the future. And I will just emphasize the fact that we must be proactive in our due diligence. That means that we have to have tough conversations with other leaders in the community, other elected officials, and you can't just be having coffee chats where you're patting each other on the back. You have to be saying what is going on in our community and how is it going to affect our stakeholders. The district also must have a better process, and I'm glad to know that you do, to track and follow up on receipts of notices and newspapers postings. It'd be nice if those notices and postings actually had substantive information that might give us a hint as to what was going on. District officials must also regularly ask zoning officials if there are any changes that may impact the district. But again, asking isn't enough. I'm glad to hear that there will be a twice-a-year update by the Director of Facilities. There needs to be explicit accountability and due diligence on that, meaning that they need to review the actual minutes, they need to be looking closely at it, they can't just ask questions. When it comes down to it, it's our responsibility. And then it's not just the Director of Facilities' responsibilities, it goes all the way up the line to the board eventually. That all being said, because the regulations now state that you cannot build new educational facilities at the South Park site because it is within the most likely crash zone for planes landing or taking off from the airport, I'm now worried about the safety of students attending school at that site. This is on top of the fact that the building is far from an ideal learning environment. If the worst case scenario were to occur and a plane crashed into the building where students were learning and they wouldn't even be able to open the windows to escape because they are sealed shut, that would be a preventable disaster and a preventable tragedy. We must take action for the safety of our students. Dr. Davis has said in the past that he only wants to bring a referendum to our community if we think it can pass, and I understand his reasoning. That said, even a failed referendum has the potential to bring needed, constructive conversation to the forefront in our community. And a successful referendum, it would be transformational for our district. Right now, there's a lot of misinformation and emotionally charged opinions that focus very little on the needs of today's and tomorrow's students, as well as our responsibility to the taxpayers of today and tomorrow. There are many who believe the district fails at communication, so if we focus on transparency and communication, it stands to reason that we will build trust. If nothing else, it will help us understand what the solution is, if not this plan. And that transparency, communication, and trust will empower people to make informed votes on this and future referendums. I think this is an opportunity for positive discourse and to put students first. I'm tired of being mediocre. It's time for Oshkosh to give our students the opportunity they deserve. They deserve a system that expects high-achieving students and facilities that foster learning, rigor, and engagement. We are making the needed investments and changes academically. And as was mentioned earlier in the public comment, we not only can, we must do both things at once. We need to have those same expectations of our facilities for our students and our taxpayers. Our kids deserve it, so we have to try. So I'll be voting to put this to the voters.
Thank you very much. Dr. Herzog, Mrs. DeWitt, comments?
Go ahead. Thank you. I'm very impressed with the thought processes of Mrs. Smeltley, Mr. Wright, and Mrs. Carlin in particular, who have spoken. I, too, was very distressed by the information that we received at the board meeting on December 18th that there was a problem with South Park. That was the first that I, as a board member, heard about that. And one of my questions was, how did this happen? We have three local entities here, county, city, and school board, and this was never communicated fully, it doesn't appear. And the board didn't know about this, or at least I didn't, until December 18th. But I have to say that I'm impressed with Dr. Davis pulling the planning team together, and by December 20th, which at the end of the day was the first day of the winter break, there was a plan in place, a viable plan to continue some of the good work, that had been done in the previous plan. It preserves our focus on a new West Side Middle School. It preserves the concept of a 4K learning center, which would roughly save the district $500,000 a year, based on the information that Dr. Davis shared with me. It preserves the air conditioning in 3 elementary schools, which I see as both a health and a safety concern. And it expands 3 of our elementary schools, which would result in our ability to close Roosevelt School as a district building, and also the recreational department. I agree that education is not just about shiny facilities, but I do believe it sets a tone for what happens in those classrooms and those buildings. And at some point, just as all of us who own a car have to decide how much money are we going to put into an old vehicle and preserve that, when ultimately you're going to probably have to invest in a newer model. So how much are we willing to put into this? But as some of my fellow board members have said, this is a huge safety issue for me. When this zoning has defined South Park as basically as a hazardous area for our students and our staff, that speaks volumes to me. And knowing that if there are those pipes that are in the insulated walls with the asbestos, we would have to go to a virtual learning situation, which none of us, I don't think, would care to go back to. I also look at the taxpayers. Being able to save $550,000 on the 4K site consolidation. If we kick this can down the road is a phrase that we've sometimes used around this table, the inflationary costs would be increased. We wouldn't have to purchase additional land. So I see those as some of the factors that lead me to support this. And I believe it does support our students and put students first. I know that a quote was shared with me, and probably others, regarding the opening of Val Phillips, with some students saying, I never thought I'd be in a building this nice. And that comes from students who are in a building roughly with more than 50% kids who would qualify for free and reduced lunch. There's a message that goes to our kids when we provide them with things that are considered good. I am, however, concerned about the communication and input with the general public. This came across very quickly, but I see basically two major changes to the plan that we had been looking at prior to December 18th, and that is where would that West Side Middle School be located, and where would the 4K program be located. The one thing that this plan doesn't allow us to do is to combine some of those alternate education facilities, namely the WIT program, the WIN program, and the True Academy. However, that savings is much smaller. That's roughly $30,000, which is significant. I'm not dismissing that. We heard in the listening session tonight about why did we purchase all those properties in the South Park Middle School area. I always feel that I try to make the best decision I can with the information I have at the time. And I think we did that as a board at that juncture when we felt that the best solution was to build on that South Park property, looking at saving the taxpayers' money because of not having to purchase land. There will be a loss there in terms of we aren't going to be able to recoup the full costs of those properties. But I come back to the safety issues, I come back to the saving the taxpayers' money, and I come back to putting our students first, putting our students in facilities that will serve them and this community for years to come. Earlier tonight, we heard about requests for students coming into the district and the number of students going out. What message are we sending to our community, to potential people moving into the community, if we're not supporting buildings that will take our students and our community deeper into the 21st century? So ultimately, it's the taxpayers who will have to decide. I am moved by the information that Dr. Hess shared tonight about soil and other environmental factors at the Shapiro site. Right now, we can only speculate on what that will lead to. And ultimately, the taxpayers will have to decide. I just wish there was more opportunity for the general public to communicate, and as with prior referendum questions that have gone to the general public, I anticipate that there will be numerous opportunities between now and April 1st for the district to get out correct information. This was the first I heard tonight that there's misinformation and disinformation out in the public. I have not seen that. I did hear from two members of the community who asked that we slow this process down. I get that. On the other hand, the board of the 2019-2020 school year asked administration at that time to come up with a long-range facilities plan, which we did not have. And in early 2020, I believe it was January of that year, the board passed this 4-phase plan, which has been nurtured and tweaked and developed, resulting in phase 1 being implemented, and now we're we're looking at asking our taxpayers to fund Phase 2. So I'm not going to repeat what everyone else said, because I agree with much of it, but I think that it's in the best interests to move forward and ask our community whether or not they want to support moving forward with Phase 2, and if they don't, we learn from that and we come back with another approach. But safety issues, saving money, and acting in the best interests of our students and the learning environments in which we ask them to live and work, and the same with our staff, are what drive me to say, yes, I will support moving forward with these questions on the ballot.
Thank you. Mrs. DeWitt, any comments that you'd like to make?
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate everybody's, coming forward and having these discussions. I think that it's wonderful to be able to have this and have the community see this. And I do have to apologize. I have missed the last 2 meetings with these discussions, but I can assure you that I was watching along and have paid attention fairly closely. With that said, I do understand the want and potential need for new buildings, as well as the fact that there is a long-range facilities plan in place. I do believe, though, that we need to take a step back and look at reality. And the reality is that many of the Oshkosh taxpayers cannot afford this referendum at this time. In most cases, as many others have said, I would look at this and say that this is something that the community needs to share their voice to say whether or not they want it or not. But what I'm struggling with, and I'm struggling hard, is that I feel as though you're asking us in a way to deceive the community and the taxpayers by saying that this will be a 0% increase. And frankly, I cannot and will not do that. I've seen and looked at in depth the facilities and finance report where those consultants had shared and showed some options. And if I'm looking at it and understanding it correctly, 2 out of the 3 strategies did show that taxes would go up, while there was one that showed that taxes would not go up. But what I'm having a hard time with is how come we haven't committed to that? That's where I believe the deceit comes in. If this truly is going to be a 0% increase, let's commit to that and not have a future board determine that. I do not think that the community believes that there will be no increase as well. We have spent, as we have talked, millions of dollars purchasing the homes near South Park, and for what? $1.2 million was wasted, and now we're asking the community to trust us that this new plan that was created in 3 weeks is the right one. I'm really having a hard time. And as far as South Park, this may sound really harsh, but I believe that somebody needs to say it. I look at this as a complete failure on our part, and to be quite honest, an embarrassment for not only all of us, but the entire district and community as well. I believe that the community and our taxpayers deserve an apology, and I haven't heard it. This is something that never should have happened, and to continue to see and hear finger pointing up until tonight, and no one taking responsibility, and being told to trust the new plan is honestly tiresome and completely uncalled for. Our community has every single right to be hesitant, question us, and lose trust at this point. I can understand where many are coming from. At the end of the day, we as a board are only able to hold one person accountable, and that is obviously our superintendent. And I feel as though that accountability has somewhat started and started to show tonight, but we need to demand it now. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but again, I think an apology is a good start. I get that this is something that most of this board has wanted, and this is the vision that has been had for many years. But frankly, I believe it's time that we put our visions aside and give the taxpayers what they want and deserve, and that's a break. I'm sorry, but I will be voting no on this, as our community deserves better, honest, transparent communication along with a break in increased taxes. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I think I'm the last one.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Huss.
I ask questions, now I want a statement. Thanks. when the South Park Airport zoning first came up, the district released a statement, I believe to one of the press, saying that we remain dedicated to transparent communication. And as I reviewed this recent plan and how I'd be voting this evening, that phrase is what weighed heavily on my mind. I went back to the 4 key takeaways that were presented to the community at the feedback sessions. And I'm going to start bottom up and work my way into my logic here. And the first one is what Ms. DeWitt brought up, the claim of $0 increase to taxpayers. And I've been uncomfortable with this claim from the start, but I do understand the logic of what we were talking about there, that the tax rate in any given year for debt service doesn't have to increase. However, at our present rate, we could pay off the 2020 debt in 3 years. And if we add this new roughly $200 million to it, it would take us just over 14 years. And make no mistake, that is an increase in taxes. However, what frustrates me is very similar to what Ms. DeWitt said, that at the Facilities and Finance Committee, we had PMA, our securities consultant, come in and show us the scenarios. And 2 of those scenarios were practicing defeasance, where we would increase the tax rate in a strategy to get up to a point where in 2030, if we asked for another referendum, we could once again say there is no increase in our taxes. The thing is, this can't happen if we do not pass this referendum. And the argument that I heard at the time was, well, this is a decision for future boards. And I agree with the sentiment that Ms. DeWitt had, that if we want to make the claim of 0 increases to the tax rate, then this board needs to vote to commit to this. I do not understand the district administrating promoting the message of no increase without the board having committed to this rate. In my opinion, that is not transparent communication. And to be clear, even if we do commit to a rate, this is a tax increase. Next on this was the bullet point of consolidate for 1,000 less students. And I went back and looked at the population study that we had looked at a while back, where it said we were going to lose roughly 1,000 students per year going forward. And during the presentation, the argument was made that this was primarily due to declining birth rates. And we were given these graphs of the Wisconsin birth rates and the local birth rates. And when I saw the South Park information, it made me want to go back and question everything. And I gave that presentation to an intern and said, hey, go check this out. Tell me, is there anything else wrong with this? And while that Wisconsin birth rate graph looks pretty stark there, it looks like it's declining quite significantly. In part, that's a problem with the y-axis. You can take a graph and make it look really extreme, but if you trot out a trend line from that particular graph and then apply the overall trend line to just Oshkosh, that graph tells us that we should anticipate a decline in birth rates in the Oshkosh area by roughly 10 a year. And then the population study says that we're only retaining 70% of those. So this accounts for 7 student decline per year. So then you could go to the Oshkosh, the local birth rates, and that too, the extreme trend line that was presented said 10.6 births, which would result to a 7.3 student per year decline. So then why are we losing 100 students per year? The population study at the very end, the last paragraph, pointed it out. Because we continue to see losses in open enrollment. Private schools are gaining enrollment. The use of private school vouchers are increasing, and we've got homeschooling increasing. So one of our candidates for school board, Dr. Ford, recently published an article on open enrollment in which he saw academic achievement impact that open enrollment. And this is consistent with work that I have done with Wisconsin data showing that enrollment is impacted by achievement. This shouldn't be a surprise, but students, or more specifically parents, tend to want to send their children to high-performing districts. So roughly 7% of our decline is attributable to birth rates. I would argue that the majority of the decline is attributable to achievement or lack thereof. To me, this plan is asking the community to fund just under $200 million to accommodate declines in enrollment. But those declines will continue to come with a failure to improve academic achievement. So in short, we are asking the community to support a plan to accommodate future failures. Rather than doing this, I would suggest that this board wait and demand administration raise achievement significantly as promised. And if this happens, if we become a destination district because of achievement, we will gain back our loss of students and regret consolidation or right-sizing proposed in this plan. Previously, I was of the opinion that I didn't support the referendum personally for financial reasons, but felt this should be a community decision. At that point, I felt that this was just a question of prioritization. The South Park zoning issue and seeing what was told to us in terms of birth rates, and now that I have evaluated this, I believe this plan is a mistake that we as a community will regret, and it is a costly one at that. I question whether sufficient due diligence has been done on the Shapiro site and that it is safer. I believe the community has lost faith in our leadership. I believe many are angry over the $1.2 million spent on buying and raising houses at South Park. Many are livid over the recent property tax bill they just received. Many are hurting financially, and I believe the community isn't buying into the message of maintain $0 tax increase. I believe this referendum will pass tonight, this board, but I believe it's going to entirely fail on April 1st. I don't know that I have seen our dedication to transparent communication, and I cannot support a plan to accommodate future failure. I will vote no.
Dr. Davis, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I just want to again make sure, and I think it was also off of Ms. Schmeltlich's comments to the academic failures that are occurring like in our system. We are committed to improving the academic achievement, starting with literacy, working through math, our SEL work. I just want to say to the community, our staff is working very hard at that, has seen some initial progress, which was part of that presentation, and some work that we're doing. And we are very committed and excited about the opportunities that we have moved forward with the adoption of CKLA. Reading is our top priority, with the hiring of Dr. Coleman and his leadership, being a person of influence in the city of Oshkosh after a year and a half. I believe that there is some very good momentum, and I just want to say to all staff members who are working very hard and tirelessly, in many cases some difficult decisions, that we have your back, and we are destined to have continued improvement in that process, and that this facility plan will help support that as we move forward.
Thank you. Closing comments. I will be voting yes tonight. I calculated today that my first son, my oldest son, started in the Oshkosh Area School District 33 years ago. I've been at this a long time, not necessarily sitting on the board, but being an involved parent, from raising money for Washington School, because at that point this district didn't give money for playgrounds. That has changed. We have seen so many changes, so many positive changes. And what's really interesting, in these 33 years, there's been very little done with facilities. When starting 2017, there was finally a plan put together for our aging facilities, for our deferred maintenance, for all the things that were not happening. We're starting to see that happen with Vel Phillips, with Menominee, these fabulous, fabulous schools that maybe have had a glitch getting started but are running at full strength now. I am so excited to see the increases in literacy. I'm excited for the public to know what is happening. We can wait and wait and wait, but that's what this community has done with our schools. Mm-hmm. And I will be voting yes because I refuse to go backwards. This district needs to go forward. It enhances economic development. There isn't a person that's going to move here unless we have good schools that have high literacy scores and processes in place to increase literacy scores. I can't go back. I'm going forward, and I will be voting yes tonight. Call the roll, please.
There's a
Aye.
Hess.
No.
Milton.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
DeWitt.
No.
Resolution carries.
Thank you.
That's number 2. We have to pass number 3.
Yes. Number 3, resolution providing for referendum election on question the approval of an initial resolution authorizing issuance of general obligation bonds in an amount not to exceed $197,800,000.
So move, Herzog.
Second.
Discussion? Mrs. Carla?
It came up in our listening session tonight. Could we make the referendum question easier to follow? And we can't. We are bound to certain verbiage and everything. Could somebody speak to that, please? Because I think there was a comment like, why is it so confusing on the ballot?
Yeah, I can. So there's statutory language that defines how the question needs to be written. And so through some feedback from our last meeting, we had asked about the ability to be able to bullet point some of the question. We're able to do that. So the best that we can do is to be able to clarify through some formatting what the question is asking for.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
But we got bullet points, so
We got
that's
bullet
good.
points, that's good.
Okay. Call the roll, please.
Milton.
Aye.
Wright.
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
DeWitt.
No.
Herzog.
Aye.
Hess.
No.
Resolution carries.
Okay, and now we'll be adjourning to executive session where we will be considering the employment, promotion, compensation, performance evaluation of a public employee.
Do we need to do future agenda items?
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that before?
Yes, it sure is. Yep. See, Tim, I have a scribble through it from my 1-year-old child care today. So I thought it was done. Yes. Are there any requests for future agenda items?
I would like to make one request. I would like this board to vote to commit to a plan that will not increase the referendum debt levy.
Perfect.
I'm so sorry. Could I ask you to repeat that? There was quite a bit of background
Yep.
noise.
I would like to vote to commit to a plan that will not increase the referendum debt levy.
That's the future agenda item?
That's what I want for us to. Yeah.
Any announcements?
Nope.
Okay. Now we're going to adjourn to executive session for what I read before.
Sounds good.
So moved.
Second.
Third. No.
If we could take like a 10-minute break.
Aye.
Just
Yeah, so Steffi and me.
10 minutes?
The board is going to take a 10-minute break, so just before 7 minutes to, Dr. Davis is going to talk with media right now.
Okay, I think you do the roll.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
Right?
Aye.
Wyman.
Aye.
Carlin.
Aye.
DeWitt. Aye. Herzog.
Aye.
Hess.
Aye.
Milton.
Aye.
Thank
We're
you.
going to executive session.